right, everyone. I have 6 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Shelby Eisenbach. I am a coordinator here in the Bachelor of Social Work program at the University of Louisville. So today we're going to just do a nice little overview about our program, discuss a little bit more about the application process, courses that you would be taking. I will, of course, answer any questions you all have. I ask that you all keep your microphones muted during the presentation. This is being recorded and will be also sent out to everyone that registered. I do have the chat box pulled up, so feel free to type in any questions during the presentation, and I will keep my eye out on that. But also, I'll open the floor up at the very end if you want to unmute your microphone at that time to ask any questions that way. But we'll go ahead and get started. So I'd first like to start off with the question, what is social work? You will usually receive a very different response to this question depending on who you ask, but social work is the profession that promotes or restores the relationships between people and their environment in order to improve the quality of life for individuals, families, communities, or organization. And a few questions that you may want to ask yourself if you're still kind of navigating whether or not social work is for you. Is this a good career field for me? One, are you good at maneuvering through complex situations? Two, do you have a passion for helping vulnerable and marginalized individuals, families, and communities? And three, do you have a passion for advocacy and promoting social justice? Now, the great thing about social work, it's an extremely broad career field. There are so many different paths that you can take. Social work, I like to think, is not necessarily boxing you into one specific career. You can see here, I'm not going to read off every single one of these different careers that you can go into with a social work degree, but it really does vary drastically, and it can depend just on your general interest. If you have maybe a personal passion or a background working maybe currently in the field of social work or a personal experience in social work, everyone's journey looks very different. But I feel like I'm learning. I've been in this position for years. I feel like I'm still learning every other week a different interest of a current student or learning of a different field an alumni has gone into. So social work is very broad, which is nice to know. If those that are in the career field know burnout is real. It can be a real thing in the workforce. So it's wonderful to know that, 10, 20 years down the road, if you need a change of pace or change of scenery, that you have those transferable skill sets to be doing something completely separate, but still under that umbrella of social work. So over the next few slides, we will go a little bit more into detail about these few items. So just a few highlights. For our Bachelor of Social Work program, it's a minimum of 120 credit hours. Of those 120 credit hours you'll be completing, they do have to be the correct courses that we have listed through our curriculum advising audit that we give every single student during your initial onboarding advising appointment. Students also must maintain a minimum 2.5 GPA. You will see this number quite frequently. That is required to be admitted to our program. It is a part of our upper division application process. It's needed to stay in good standing in our program, and it's also needed to meet those minimum graduation requirements. The wonderful thing also about our BSW program is that we offer both a fully remote online option as well as on campus and in person. We also have a nice hybrid option if you're maybe in the Louisville or surrounding area, maybe wanting to come to campus for a class or two. You do have that hybrid model available. We also our program is designed for both full-time and part-time students. A lot of our students, over half our students, are under that kind of non-traditional student population umbrella. So we see vast majority are working full-time. They maybe have dependents, they're caregivers. They have a lot going on outside of the classroom. So this flexibility, both for the full-time and part-time route, as well as online, on campus, or hybrid, makes our program extremely obtainable and doable for a lot of our students. But also, we do have a lower division and an upper division process and application, which we'll dive a little bit deeper into what both of those look like. So first, I want to take a peek at the actual course requirements. So as I just mentioned, every student during their initial onboarding appointment, which I would say vast majority, about 90% of new students, will meet with me. Sometimes you will meet with our other team members, such as our lead academic advisor or program manager, but we will all print off or send you a digital copy of what we call our advising audit. So it has all these courses listed, but these next 3 slides just highlight what those courses are. But the lower division will be your first 60 credit hours of the program. The lower division is more those traditional, what we consider freshman and sophomore year courses. So your first 60 credit hours. This will include your general education courses, which at the University of Louisville, we call that our Cardinal Core. That includes 2 written communications courses. These are your English classes, an oral communications course, a mathematics course, 2 art and humanities courses, 2 natural science courses, 1 with a lab, social and behavioral science courses. One of those include history, and then our global and U.S. diversity course component. So these are classes that every single student at the University of Louisville must complete. It does not matter what major or program that you are in. These are required for all undergraduate students. So the second half of what we consider our lower division to be is supporting requirements. So those general education courses we just looked at are for all U of L students. These courses are a little bit more specific to you as a social work major. So some of the courses you will be taking for these prerequisite requirements would be social work orientation. This is more of like a first year experience course. So if you are a transfer student, maybe you took something similar to this at another institution, or if you're transferring in with 24 or more credit hours, you will be exempt from this. But we also have our introduction to social work, our human biology anatomy, which is a social work course, statistics, also a social work class for us, introduction to psychology, introduction to sociology, and then a handful of electives. So this slide and the previous slide will make up the first 60 credit hours of those freshman, sophomore year courses, and these will be the courses that you focus on first completing before you move on to what we consider our upper division. So the upper division this is when you get into more of those professional coursework curriculum. You're done with those gen eds, you're focusing solely on social work classes. So they will include the following: general practice courses, human behavior and social environment courses, social welfare institutions, policies and services course, issues and policy and service delivery course, your introduction to social work research course, your diversity, oppression, and social justice course, a handful of social work electives, and then my favorite, which is our practicum. So a major component of our BSW program is that every student in the program, your last 2 semesters, so your senior year, you will be completing what we call a practicum. So this is a class. You take this class like any other class. You earn 3 credit hours, both for a fall and spring semester, so 6 total hours. But instead of coursework and papers and tests, you're earning those credits a little differently. You will actually be placed out into a local social work agency, so it'll be somewhere around you. And you will be working there roughly about 16 hours a week. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you to gain some great hands-on experience, to have something added to your resume before you even graduate. Hopefully get some great letters of recommendation or references. We see a lot of the times too, these sometimes roll over into job opportunities. but it's a way for you to apply everything you've been learning inside the classroom up into this point, and get that hands-on experience. So a lot more to come about the practicum. This is a very extensive process, so much that we have an entire separate team of staff members, our practicum office, that oversee all the placements for practicum for both our bachelor's and our master's level students. So you will work closely with them, just like you'll have an assigned academic advisor on our team. You will have an assigned practicum coordinator that you'll work with, that will determine, your general interest. We want to know what your career goals are. We don't just want to throw you into a random practicum site. We want you to have somewhat of a say. It's not always a perfect matchmaking process, but we do our best to make sure that we place you somewhere that aligns with your career goals and your interests. So, like I said, a lot more to come about the practicum portion. You will attend kind of like a brief information session and orientation once you reach your what we consider your junior year. One thing I did want to point out here, if you are reading along, where it says this kind of the second bullet point there, so 16 hours a week, and it does say Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I like to point this out. I usually receive a few questions at the end about this. The reason that is listed is because vast majority of the practicums that our students complete are usually within that normal business hour model. And the reason behind that is at your practicum site, you will have a supervisor. That supervisor has to have earned at minimum a master's degree. And usually they're in a position that does not require them to be working evenings or weekends. That's not always the case. Sometimes I do have students who will come back and let me know they scored a evening and or weekend opportunity. So that is not always the case, but vast majority of the times we see students are working and completing the practicum hours during that 8 to 5 Monday through Friday time frame. All right, so to dive a little bit deeper into the application process itself, I briefly mentioned in the first few slides about how we do have two application components, a lower division and an upper division. So the lower division application is just your general application to the University of Louisville's Office of Admissions. If you put social work as your major, you apply to the University of Louisville and you are admitted, that means you've been admitted to our lower division. So a few things to highlight on here. If I have any current high school students that will be joining us either this fall or next fall, the biggest thing to note is that we no longer require a standardized test score for admissions. However, you may be required to either take a standardized kind of test internally so we know what math and or reading class to put you in, but also if you are trying to apply for any scholarships, we will need to have a standardized test score on file. But once again, you'll see that 2.5 GPA listed. For my transfer applicants, same thing, 2.5 GPA is really what we're aiming for to be admitted to our lower division in good standing. And usually the question I receive as well, if you have earned credit hours at multiple institutions, we are looking at the cumulative GPA. So we're not taking your lowest, we're not taking your highest, we're not taking your most recent school. The admissions office will look at the cumulative GPA from all of your transcripts. But the very bottom, most important thing to note is that admissions into our lower division of the program does not guarantee admission into the upper division. So we, as the student services team, always want to ensure that our students have a very competitive upper division application. We go over this information extensively in your onboarding appointment. So that'll be usually your first initial appointment in the program, or whenever it gets a little closer to when you would be applying for the upper division. We want to make sure you have all of the knowledge and anything we can do to assist. But the biggest things we look at from an advisor standpoint is we're looking at one, have you completed your lower division requirements? And two, where is your GPA? It has to be a 2.5 or higher to be considered. So those are the main things that we look at. But the other components for the upper division will be the following. So I already mentioned the 2.5 GPA. You'll usually be applying in a spring semester while completing any lower division courses. So typically what we consider your sophomore year. 2.5 GPA or higher, that is a must. You'll also be submitting a personal statement. You'll have more or less a resume section where you'll write out any volunteer work or positions held, and that can also go into detail about your responsibilities, how long you've been there, etc. And then we also require letters of recommendation. So we do require one of those be from a supervisor. It can be through employment or volunteer work. We don't have a preference. And then one of them has to be from a course instructor, so a faculty member that's had you in their class. But that is the upper division application kind of in a nutshell. As I mentioned, we go over this very extensively when we determine when you're applying for the upper division. But the thing to note here is that we only have fall semester starts to the upper division portion of our program. The lower division, all those supporting requirements and the general education requirements, those courses are offered all throughout the year. Summer, fall, spring, even some winter term courses. But our upper division courses are only offered once a year, which means we only have fall semester starts to that portion. But I think of them as like stepping stones for the courses in the upper division. They all have to be taken in a particular order. They're all prerequisites for each other. So once you reach that portion of our program, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room in regards to when you can start and what courses are offered when. It's very structured, which if you like to overthink things like me, you don't have to worry about overthinking what classes you're taking. It's all laid out for you. But the priority deadline for the upper division start is February 1st, and the final deadline will always be May 15th. These are subject to change. I know this past year we did extend the final deadline out about 14 days. It was always May 1st, but we will work with students case by case after this as well. But this is the upper division application. So we will let every student know kind of your biggest takeaway here is as you enter our program, you're not going to have to do any of the guessing work. We will lay out a kind of a timeline and get that anticipated date of when you're applying to the upper division and also an anticipated graduation date. Since our program is structured, we like to plan very far out in advance. Although life happens, sometimes we have to change things up, and that is okay. But I always like for my initial onboarding appointments that students know for sure an anticipated graduation date as well as an upper division application date and when they'll be doing that. So in our BSW program, we do have one specific track. You will see a lot more of these tracks and areas of specialization in our master's program. The bachelor's program is really just establishing the basics, kind of building that foundation. But we do have one track, and that is for students that are interested in alcohol and drug counseling. So this is something that's just optional if this is a career field that interests you. You would be applying for this simultaneously as the upper division. You have to be admitted to the upper division to be admitted to this track. So it doesn't doesn't take place until your last 2 years, so that upper division. But if you are interested in this, all you would need to do while you are submitting your upper division application is submit a 2-page essay just discussing your interest in this area, if you have experience, and then your potential contributions and plans after you graduate. If you are admitted to this track, you are required to take 4 specific upper division electives, which in the upper division, every student takes about 5 to 6 total. So 4 of them are chosen for you. And then most importantly, your practicum will be held in some sort of substance abuse setting. So your practicum, you'll kind of get that experience during your last 2 semesters, and you'll also be taking these 4 specific electives. So optional opportunity, but it's a great track for students that are interested. And also if you're maybe reading along here, like the electives at the bottom, if you're like, hey, mental health sounds like a really cool class, but I'm not necessarily interested in applying for this track. These electives are open to all students in our upper division. So you'll be able to take these classes even if you are not applying for the track. So one Oops, sorry, hold on, I skipped one. There you go. So one other optional opportunity we have is the Public Child Welfare Certification Program. Now, I will go ahead and preface that this is only my in-state students. So my Kentucky students are eligible for this. This is a partnership that the University of Louisville has with the state of Kentucky, specifically the Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Family Services. And what this is, if you're interested in maybe working with families or children, that population interests you, this could be a really good program for you. But if you are admitted, same thing, you would be applying for this simultaneously as the upper division. You have to be admitted to the upper division to be eligible for this program. But if you are admitted, the state of Kentucky will actually pay for your last 4 semesters of tuition. So that will be your entire upper division, your junior and senior year courses. They will provide you a stipend each semester of about $1,300. You do receive about half of that in the summer. And then your practicum will be held with the state, so you kind of get some training before you go work for them. But the good news is they just released this past year that they are now paying their practicum students, which is unheard of for the bachelor's level, up to $15 an hour, and students can work up to 37 and a half hours a week. So you kind of max out 16 hours a week with just your practicum hours, but if you just want that additional, 20 plus hours on top of that, you have the option to do that. And then you earn at the end your certification in public child welfare. That's something that you keep for the rest of your life. That's something that stays put on your resume. And then you were contracted after you graduate to work for the state for 2 years. So they have about a $50,000 a year salary. I do know in Jefferson County here in Louisville, I believe that is a little higher. I think it's like $4 extra per hour. Don't quote me on that. So I think of it as the state of Kentucky helps you for 2 years. They pay your tuition. They pay you a stipend. You do your internship, your practicum with them, which is paid, and then you work for them for 2 years. So it's a 2-for-2 trade. But this is a very extensive, I would say, subject, so much that we usually host about 3 to 4 information sessions each semester of this. Emily Watts, her contact info is listed there at the bottom. She is the coordinator for this program, and she also is the course instructor for the 2 classes that are required for this. So a lot more can be said about this, but that is the PCWCP summarized. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them at the end. I can also connect you with Emily. She's going to be, I would say, the best to answer questions. She's also an alumni of this program. So, but this is a great opportunity for my in-state folks that are interested in maybe going on to work with this particular population. All right, so this may sound like a very far off thing, but I promise it always sneaks up on students and graduation comes a little sooner than you think. But going on to the master's program and earning your MSSW is something that we will tell every student that comes into our BSW program. It's just honestly in this career field, a master's is almost needed for vast majority of positions. Not that you can't go on to have a successful and rewarding career with a bachelor's degree in social work, but a lot of positions will require you to have that master's and have the licensure that you can't receive until you have a master's degree. But the good news is that if you are in our BSW program and you maintain at least a 3.0 cumulative GPA and a 3.25 in your social work classes, you would be eligible for the 30 credit hours. So it's about a 1-year master's program. A traditional MSSW is about 60 credit hours, so it cuts the time in half, which is always wonderful news. But the 30-hour program can be complete in as little as 2 semesters all the way up through 5 semesters. That's just something to think about, keep in the back of your mind, keep on your radar, maybe a little more extra motivation to keep your GPA up. But you will certainly hear from our master's team throughout your time, usually in the upper division. But if you ever have questions for them or want to hop on one of their information sessions, you're more than welcome to do that. But you will certainly be hearing from them in the upcoming few years. All right, so I appreciate you all sticking with me. I know that's a lot of information. So what can you do now? So first and foremost, you definitely, if you are currently enrolled in courses at another institution or even at the University of Louisville, establish and or maintain those good relationships with professors. As I mentioned, one of the requirements for our upper division application is a letter of recommendation from a professor. I work with a lot of online students, and that is usually the number one thing I hear is, well, I'm an online student and I never saw my faculty member. I never spoke with them. I challenge you to utilize, they should be offering virtual office hours. Utilize those or find a time to meet with them outside of the classroom virtually. Just find a way to connect with them. Keep your GPA up above a 2.5. So you saw that 2.5 multiple times. 2.5 is the rule of thumb. We challenge you to stay above that, especially if you are interested in going on to the master's program, but you'll need a 2.5 to be admitted to our lower division, to be admitted to our upper division, and ultimately to graduate from the program. So the other big next step is just to fill out your application to the University of Louisville. So that is just the general application through the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. And that is once you are admitted, that is when you're admitted to our lower division. And then once you are admitted to the university, you will receive a list of next steps, and one of those will include scheduling your initial advising appointment. And that is when you'll meet with, I mentioned earlier, myself. I'm usually the main point of contact, but Miss Anna O'Connor is our lead academic advisor. Sarah Springer is our program manager. So one of us will meet with you, and that's when we'll take a peek at transfer credits. We'll make sure we answer all your questions. We'll talk about next steps. When you'll be applying for the upper division. But I personally block out at least an hour for my initial appointments. I like to talk a lot. I always want to make sure we have time to go over everything. But that is what we're here for. If we have to schedule a follow-up meeting, we can always do that. But a lot more information and personalized information we'll go over with you in that first appointment. But these would be my recommended next steps. All right, so here is just my personal contact info on here. So I have my phone number and my email address, and I believe in the follow-up messaging that the online services team will send will include this recording, but also will have the online, the Delphi Center, online learning teams info, as well as my info. So you'll have that as well if you don't jot this down right now. But I just really want to say thank you again for taking time out of your evening. I hope you were maybe able to get some of your questions answered, and I am more than happy to stick around here. And if you have questions, feel free to type it in that chat box, or if you want to unmute your microphone. And you have my contact info, so if it's maybe a question you don't want to ask in front of everyone, you can send me an email, and I can assist that way as well. But thank you so much again, and like I said, I'll stick around here for the next few minutes.
Hi, Shelby. I have a question. Can I ask? This is Angelica Williams. Can you see me?
Yes, hi Angelica. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I know you said something about having a letter of recommendation from a faculty member. I have not been in college since like 2014. How would that?
That's a really good question, and I've had a few students kind of in that same boat. So it would depend. So the biggest thing is you would not need that letter until you're ready to apply for our upper division. So the first thing we would look at would be what courses you're transferring in with. And if you are in a unique situation where you came in with every single lower division course met, and you are ready to apply for the upper division, we would recommend, of course, speaking with us sooner rather than later. So maybe it could be next spring semester or like summer that we would have you maybe work on some upper division electives, and you could utilize one of those faculty members. But most students transferring in haven't met every single lower division requirement. So if that was the case, I would say to utilize one of those. But like I said, I've had a few students that come in and I'm like, oh my gosh, you literally have taken every single lower division class. We're gonna have you knock out one of these classes and utilize them.
Perfect answer. I don't think I'm gonna. I'll probably have to come in the lower division because I was hearing some of the lower division classes you were saying that I know I have not taken. So that'll work for me then. I'll
Yes.
just use the lower division professors to help that because I was like, oh God, it's been since 2014. I don't
Yes.
remember those names. Okay.
Yes. And so for your general just application to the University of Louisville, which is technically the lower division, they won't ask. The only reason the admissions office may ask for some additional materials if maybe a student's GPA isn't high enough. They may ask for like, I don't know, a statement of purpose on their end, but that is up to their discretion. But typically that won't be like a letter recommendation is usually not required. But yes, you would definitely have some time to establish a relationship with one of those faculty members. And I also tell students it does not have to be a social work instructor. So let's say you're completed with all your lower division social work classes and maybe you just have some general education classes. That is fine. It does not have to be social work specific, although sometimes our social work instructors are usually easier to ask. They receive a lot of requests, I would say. And sometimes it's a little easier, I would say, to just develop that relationship and build that rapport with them. But it does not have to be social work specific. So I did want to mention that as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name's Trinity.
Hi, Trinity.
Okay, so humor me. So I'm military. I'm active duty, but this is a class I was wanting to take. Do you think that would be manageable?
Just to be in our program, active duty.
Yes.
So that is a great question. We have a lot of active duty military students at the university and in our program. I would say it is doable. I mean, at the end of the day, you know you best. And obviously, military things can change without a whole lot of notice. And if that ever is the case, I mean, our U of L was actually the only state in Kentucky that was awarded a gold medal for just our military services. So if if something were to come up and you need that flexibility, I mean, our faculty in our military student services office will work with you. But it is doable. Most of my military students are only taking 1 to 2 classes a semester. But I've even had some of our students be overseas completing like their practicum requirements. But the biggest thing is we just always make sure that your faculty are aware of your situation, but
Yes.
our faculty are extremely accommodating and reasonable. But I would say it is doable, but you do know you best. So we could always start with maybe one class and just kind of see how it goes.
Yes, ma'am. No, so I did some college throughout high school, and then I did the Air Force Academy. So I got my college from there as well. I'm finishing up with the Air Force like schooling now, and then I go to Georgia next. So I'd still be stateside. So I think it would be doable. And like I said, I like to stay busy. I used to do a couple jobs and do school at the same time. So keeping that wouldn't be a problem for me. But with you said we needed a professor or instructor recommendation letter. Could I use my one from the Air Force school? Because it's technically an accredited college.
Yes, so that's a good question. Yes, and because I do see the transfer credits, the military transfer credits, that is, yes, an accredited school, so that would work as long as it's just someone that had you in class.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for your service.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? And like I said, you'll be receiving my contact info, but if you want to send me an email or maybe you think of something like later tonight, feel free to send me an email. And I think Brittany, that's on here too, I think you just met with Anna recently, so welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Yes, I did.
Yes. But yeah, if y'all think of anything, let me know. But thank you again so much. I hope, like I said, that we had got some of your questions answered, or maybe answered some questions you didn't know you even had. But we look forward to hearing from you, and we really hope to have you join our program. But feel free to reach out and either to myself or the online learning team, which will get their contact info, and we'll all go from there. But have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and a great weekend. And I hope to talk with you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.